Welcome to the Social Impact Journal, the podcast meeting founders, innovators, and experts driving change in our world. Cryptocurrency is a controversial topic on the African continent, and today I'm talking with an industry expert to get the lowdown on what is the current state of the crypto space in Africa right now and where are we heading. I'm talking to Umar Sebyala Bukenya, an expert based in Uganda who has previously been the ecosystem lead for Celo Foundation. This is episode 14 of the Social Impact Journal. Welcome everybody. My name is Jack Farron and I'm the host. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help if you can hit the subscribe button or follow on our social media channels like TikTok, LinkedIn, and Instagram, where we'll be sharing short form highlights of this episode and all of our future episodes. Here's a trailer.
So my name is Umar Sebyala Bukenya. I am a Web3 business and community development professional.
I remember the Bitcoin pizza story,
Oh,
where the guy paid. What was the story? So he bought a pizza with a Bitcoin, and now it would be the most valuable pizza. Do you think it's a good idea for Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency, for that matter, to be a legal tender in a country?
it would be good to kind of have a framework that recognizes cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies to be legal tender within a given country, because it opens up. You can look at the positives that El Salvador has gotten in terms of, say, net positives like tourism numbers going up, and also having remittances that can be easily sent back home through mediums that are not simply cash-based US dollar. The cons are also coming out because there is still a very huge learning gap that needs to be addressed by governments everywhere, because you don't know what you're actually regulating. It goes down to knowing that cryptocurrency is actually an area of computer science and it's not something that is everyday knowledge. So there's a large learning gap that the regulators across the board have to kind of be able to go through this and be able to be ahead of where they need to be. Otherwise, it will be catastrophic for you to put a seal of approval on something that you do not understand. And once your citizens kind of have questions, or there are scammers that are coming in, because scamming is a really big issue within the crypto space, you have no redress for them.
Good morning, Umar. How are you?
Good morning, Jack. Quite fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good. I know we expected to actually do this as our very first in-person episode in Kampala, but I'm back in the UK, as the audience can see in the background. So really looking forward to today's discussion about crypto and Africa. So how did you first get into the crypto space?
Thanks, Jack. Super pumped as well. So my name is Umar Sebyala Bukenya. I am a Web3 business and community development professional. And my journey into the Web3 space goes back to around 2018 when I was working with Uganda Telecom. Uganda Telecom is the oldest telecommunications company in Uganda. And within this, I was kind of in a company that was going through a couple of changes here and there. So we kind of had to get out of our comfort zones and learn about different things. So I was learning about networks and how this impacting telecommunications and how they're able to bring change to various individuals within society. Then within that, I kind of also wanted to expand my knowledge into things finance. And interestingly, I subscribed to a newsletter from Investopedia. So one Friday afternoon, the newsletter comes in and it's talking about this thing called Bitcoin. And it's like if you had put $100 in Bitcoin 10 years ago, you'd have 1.something million US dollars. So I'm like, hold up, what kind of asset class is this? I haven't seen anything that could be able to do this in any known asset class. So I kind of read about do a few quick searches on Wikipedia, Google, and able to understand that there's something called Bitcoin, then under it is something called blockchain. Then from there, I was able to understand that there is a whole ecosystem that kind of runs under this. This is August of 2018. So from there, I simply went down the rabbit hole and discovered whole communities, whole ecosystems that are able to bring people together and have a shared value of trying to make the world better through finance and distributed computing through the blockchain. And that's pretty much how I actually got plugged into this ecosystem. Yeah.
They always catch you with the if you put 10,000 in, you get this. I remember the Bitcoin pizza story, where the guy paid
What was the story? So he bought a pizza with a Bitcoin, and now it would be the most valuable pizza of all time. So there's
10,000 Bitcoin. 10,000 Bitcoin.
10,000 Bitcoin.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many stories about that. So 2018, you heard about Bitcoin in a magazine, and went down that rabbit hole and started finding out about the ecosystem. So when did you start actually working in the crypto space?
Yeah, so from 2018, I kind of self-taught myself. I dived into various groups, Discord and Telegram channels, trying to understand how crypto works. And it was a very interesting. It was quite interesting back then because it was simply taking on a life of its own. It was just coming off the 2017 bull run that simply got crypto to new heights. So everybody was still excited about this. And for the case of Uganda, we had just had the Africa Blockchain Conference that was held in Kampala. CZ of Binance was there, and the president was there, the Bank of Uganda governor was there. So it was a very good time to kind of get into cryptocurrencies. It was really the time there. So from 2018 up to around 2019, 2020, I was simply reading about this. Then along came a post on LinkedIn for a job with a company called Celo Labs, and we're looking for a community manager for Uganda. Very low entry requirements, just have to have a passion for cryptocurrencies, be a Ugandan national, having lived in the country for at least 3 years. It was something that I felt like I could actually do, because it was a positive step into the direction of getting into the crypto space. So I applied for this. Then around April 2020 is when I actually did the interviews and I was able to get into the role. And the role had actually evolved from a community manager into a country lead at the time. So my first role within the ecosystem was as an ecosystem lead, a country lead for Uganda at Celo Labs. And Celo Labs is still working on a blockchain platform called Celo. Celo is an L1 blockchain platform that is on a mission to build a regenerative financial system that creates the conditions for prosperity for everyone. Very exciting work, and it was really insightful. It was a very good entry into the blockchain space because it gives you a fundamental understanding of how social impact is a thing that blockchains and cryptocurrencies can be able to influence positively. And I was able to really learn a lot within this particular role. So that role has been able to, from 2020, I took it all the way to just June. This is last month to 2023, and the role has evolved over the years to an ecosystem lead. So basically, that's kind of where the role ended for me as an ecosystem lead. But within that, I was able to bootstrap a community of engaged believers and users of Celo within Uganda and Africa. I was able to travel the continent, talk about Celo, bootstrap communities here and there, partnerships, also advise on strategy and legal matters that were critical to going to market and launching within the continent. So this role was able to give me a host of knowledge and experience within the Celo and wider cryptocurrency ecosystem. And it's the experience that I kind of still draw on today to better myself as an individual within the ecosystem that is cryptocurrencies and blockchain. Yeah.
Okay, that's a fascinating journey in the crypto space. So maybe some of our audience might be thinking, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of these different cryptocurrencies. What's the use case outside of investing and hoping for some volatility and the next bull run? From your work with Celo, you mentioned being an ecosystem lead. So do you have any case studies or project examples of some ways that the technology and also crypto has been used outside of just investing?
Yeah, thanks for that. For context, when it comes to the work that we're doing within the Celo ecosystem, it was really impactful work. It was stuff that kind of bootstrapped a grassroots movement of people who had a real need for something that is going to disrupt the way that they're doing certain aspects of their life. So looking at Africa and the use cases that we see here, you would find that there are some things that really plague the continent from north to south. Issues of inflation, issues of poor infrastructure when it comes to sending remittances across borders. All those are things that cryptocurrencies and blockchain were able to kind of disrupt. So from my experience there, I saw that the key use cases that we see within the context of Africa is one that tackles savings. So folks across all 54 African countries have issues to do with inflation and seeing their economic purchasing power being eroded by I wouldn't say bad economics, but basically it's just the way it is. It's a debt-based monetary system that simply runs on debt, and purchasing power simply gets eroded because they're always printing more money. So what you hold today, if you're not able to kind of invest it and grow it over time, it will simply be eroded. So savings is a use case that is able to really ensure that more Africans are able to hold more purchasing power within their hands, as opposed to what you see with their native currencies. So if you look at a currency that is being devalued against the dollar, say for the case of the Celo ecosystem, there's a Celo dollar, which is basically pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar, and you can be able to hold that, and you'll be able to ensure that you have purchasing parity that is it's equivalent to having one digital dollar within your purchasing power, or within your palm of your hand. So savings is one use case that we really see has a solid value and is something that you can be able to replicate across the continent. Then there's this use case for sending the remittances, because we find there's a lot of cross-border trade and cross-border movement within the African continent and also within the diaspora. But whenever folks are sending money back home, it's really a pain point. You have to either go to an agent, and the rates are always high, so you end up losing a significant fraction of what you're sending within these transaction costs. So cryptocurrencies are able to bring down the cost of sending remittances and receiving them, because it's as quick as sending a digital dollar on the internet. So if you're using a cryptocurrency, say like the Celo dollar, again, for context, you're able to send it in 5 seconds and can be able to be received within five seconds anywhere in the world. So it's something that we really saw was disruptive in as far as people send money back home, and using very basic applications that can be gotten from the Play Store, like say Valora, which is a wallet application that you can be able to download and enables you to send and receive Celo assets anywhere in the world. So there's that as also a solid use case. Then Africa is plagued with unemployment. Is a use case that enables folks to earn. So anything from play to earn, move to earn, those are also solid use cases that are able to empower the youth to actually be able to make something from what they are doing. So there's a project called Wheelcoin that basically incentivizes you to use green transportation as opposed to things that are not really good for the environment, say things that basically use fossil fuels, per se. So you're able to get incentivized to simply move more greener. So such use cases are also big within the context of the continent. Then Africa is also a home for humanitarian disasters and things that need interventions that may not be easily given by our governments here. So humanitarian use cases, the use cases of giving are also big here. So they're able to be able to bring down the cost of donors giving aid, or NGOs being able to transfer aid to those that need it most, is something that also see big. And for context, while I was at the Celo Foundation, we had a project which is still there. It's called it's basically an ecosystem application called Impact Market. Basically, Impact Market is a decentralized poverty alleviation protocol that enables folks to get a universal basic income on a regular basis. So at least we're able to ensure that even the most vulnerable among us are able to get a bare minimum that can be able to see them through. So basically, you have donors on one end. In the middle, you have smart contracts that are able to automate these payouts, and periodically, folks on the other side, you have a community on the side that is able to receive the cryptocurrencies through their addresses, and this can be cashed out for local fiat currencies like Ugandan shillings, depending on the need of that given community. So those are 4 use cases that we have seen have real traction and real life use cases. That is something that is opposite from the hype of I want to hold this coin and basically get rich soon. Also, so something that is coming up is positive climate action, because climate change is something that is really affecting us wherever you actually look. So you find that a host of layer 1 blockchain platforms, even layer 2 scaling solutions, are able to have a use case that is trying to incentivize positive climate action. So for the case of Celo, you have a mechanism that basically offsets the carbon footprint of the network. And within this, say for the case of Project Rain, which is given a portion of the epoch rewards from the Celo ecosystem to go and basically plant trees across Africa. And we're seeing that the host of their areas that they plant these trees are Uganda and Kenya, which basically brings in a kind of a local ecosystem for folks to plant these trees. It creates jobs for them and also helps us basically fight climate change, which is something that is affecting us. Africa is not really contributing towards the climate pollution, but we actually are getting a host of the adverse effects that come from this. So being able to be on the front line, that we can be able to offset and also have more greenery within the continent, it's also something that is a net positive for us. So in summary, these are like 5 use cases that we see have real world impact, and they are poised to really disrupt the lives of everyday Africans within here, and also the wider ecosystem if you look at cryptocurrencies being a global movement.
Thanks so much, Umar. A couple of questions from my side. So you mentioned around the use case of remittances. So someone in the UK, for example, can send digital dollars through the blockchain network home to their country in Africa. Yeah. And you mentioned it takes around 5 seconds to reach that recipient. My question is, what happens then? Because someone in Kenya or Uganda has received that remittance. So what's the cash out process like? Because they now have a cryptocurrency, but how are they going to spend that in the shop or in the market or buying inputs or fertilizers?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jack. And it comes down to some of the work that is being done within the African continent. Well, while I was an ecosystem lead, some of my key deliverables were to kind of build out a robust cash in, cash out network for the solar ecosystem that can also be replicated for other assets per se. So you have exchanges, and exchanges are like local players that are able to provide fiat currencies for cryptocurrencies or cryptocurrencies for fiat currencies. So individuals in any given country can be able to cash out these digital assets into local fiat currencies, and they can spend it as and when they would actually need this. If you want to take it I would say a few blocks further, there's some individuals that have been able to actually build ecosystems that don't even need you to cash out the digital currencies. In that you have merchants within communities, like what we see with Impact Market, they can be able to take these currencies as they are received in their digital format, and they can be able to give you, if it's agricultural inputs, or if it's you need medicine or food, they simply take the currencies as they are given to them. So this is something that is key to seeing the adoption of cryptocurrencies across the ecosystem. Because if you bring them, if you simply have folks sending money that cannot be cashed out into local fiat currency, it kind of brings a bottleneck that you cannot really scale unless you solve for that. So it was critical to kind of have a robust cash in, cash out ecosystem that can do this. So if you look at the case of, say, Uganda, you have exchanges that say binusu.com, Bit2Big, Muda, Yellow Card. All these folks can be able to cash in, cash out for you once you have your remittance coming in. It can be in dollar, it can be in Ethereum, it can be in Bitcoin, and a host of other currencies that are supported within this ecosystem. So yeah, the cash in, cash out network is critical towards the adoption of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and it's key to the work that is being done on the continent. Yeah.
Great. And how does regulation come into play here with supporting those cash in, cash out systems? And what are you seeing on the continent in different countries? Are regulators embracing crypto? Are they going against the technology? What are you seeing?
Interestingly, when I look at the map of Africa, and it's something that I just noticed recently, that when you go further north, like in North Africa, you have a very negative stance against crypto. When you come further south, you have a very positive stance for crypto. So countries like South Africa, Namibia, Botswana are all passing positive regulation that is trying to get the asset class kind of realized and recognized what it is. Then you go further up, say countries like Egypt, up to Morocco, it's kind of it's a mix between an outright ban or something that is simply not having any positive gains going further. When you look at sub-Saharan Africa, say if you look at just the strip between the north and the south, it's pretty much a mix. It's kind of a gray area whereby folks are they're applying a wait and see strategy, that they're applying a go slow strategy, that some of them are trying to regulate them in their own way, but it's kind of something that actually noted to be quite significant. So that being said, there's kind of a mixed regulatory approach on the continent. So given that, so you find there's regulation that is positive coming out of Namibia, coming out of South Africa. Even Kenya just recently passed the Finance Act 2023, which was actually halted just yesterday because it was trying to regulate and tax cryptocurrencies at a rate of 3%. But some members of their legislature, they are kind of were able to secure a court injunction to kind of stop that. But it simply talks to what is happening in terms of the positive light that cryptocurrencies are being noticed more, and the regulators are trying to find a way to kind of put a framework that works across the board. It's not been easy, but if you look at, say, what we have for the case of Uganda, we're having constant interactions with the central bank, the Bank of Uganda, through the Blockchain Association of Uganda. We have been able to get some headway in as far as getting a framework that can be able to have positive dialogue between the association and the central bank, and it's bearing some positive fruit, even if this comes in with the backdrop of there being some few setbacks here and there. Because for the case of, say, Uganda, you have a standing order that the central bank issued like April last year, whereby it kind of asked all licensed payment service providers to decline crypto to mobile money transactions. So this has been a bit of a setback for cash in, cash out, which is something that we are trying to work around with peer-to-peer mechanisms, whereby folks can be able to still send mobile money, but it's kind of under a different framework. It is not as seamless as it was back then, whereby you can be able to cash in, cash out on say, a cryptocurrency exchange. So when you look at it, it's crypto regulation for the case of Africa is kind of a mixed bag, but at least there is positive dialogue coming out of this. You have central bank digital currencies that are coming out of countries like Nigeria and Ghana. There's also research happening in the same area within East Africa for Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania as well. So I'm pretty optimistic seeing where we'll be in, say, a couple of years, say 5 years. It will be, I want to believe that there'll be more clarity, because at least, even if regulators don't really move as fast as fintech or tech in general does, at least they're having the right conversations, and with the right input, the right stakeholders on board, we can be able to have more streamlined regulatory policies that can be able to work towards the betterment of the continent in as far as the adoption of cryptocurrencies goes.
Great. And I think we can't talk about regulation without looking at the Central African Republic. I've read that they were the second country in the world to legalize Bitcoin or have Bitcoin as a legal tender. So what happened here? How did that process take place? And currently, what are we seeing?
Yeah, so what we see with the Central African Republic is a country that was enthusiastic about getting Bitcoin to have legal tender along with other cryptocurrencies. They passed national legislation that basically allowed it to be legal tender from, I think, April last year. And unfortunately, exactly after 1 year now, they were able to, they passed counter regulation that was basically going to repeal what the earlier regulation did. So right now, cryptocurrencies within the Central African Republic are not banned. They're not really a bad thing. They're simply saying they are reference currencies, so you can be able to use them if you want to accept them, if you want to trade in them. So there's no ban on them. So that is something that is positive coming out of this. But then somebody has to look at the context of the country that the Central African Republic is. It's a small country. It's not as big as, say, El Salvador in terms of, say, GDP, even if El Salvador was the very first to actually adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. There are a couple of differences between here, because when you look at the Central African Republic, you find, according to the Human Development Index of 2018, you find that around 80 to 75% of the population of the country lives in abject poverty. So that was always going to be a bottleneck, that much as Bitcoin is legal tender, folks may not even actually have the money to spend. So that is already something that has to be, it's already a hurdle that has to be scaled. Then there is a stark lack of electricity within the country. I think estimates are around 80 to 85% of the country does not have electricity. And also internet access, that was also going to be a problem. So 10%, I think the figure around 10% of the individuals are the ones, or of the population has access to internet. And of that, you find that Central African Republic has one of the highest cost of data within sub-Saharan Africa, because each gigabyte of data was around $8.93, which is way higher than the average of sub-Saharan Africa, which is around $4.43. So we have all these factors that are kind of bearing down on such a small economy, such a small country. Then also you have bigger issues, say like pressure from the UN that simply has a policy that does not really encourage developing nations to get involved with cryptocurrencies at national level. That was always going to be a sticky point. Then also you have the ties that Central African Republic has with Russia that could have really sent the wrong signals. Maybe Russia was trying to use cryptocurrencies to circumvent sanctions, and here you have an African partner, so that was always going to bring some pressure that really comes onto them. So it kind of puts them in a situation whereby they really had the odds stacked against them to kind of start with. I understand that their hearts were really in the right place, but I think the infrastructure that needed to have this become a reality simply wasn't in place. So you find that they're always going to have bottlenecks on that. But then what that does, that gives us some learning points that we can be able to pick from if we wanted to replicate something like that across any other African country. And this would come in the form of things like, before you actually launch something that is as big as legal tender, maybe you need to kind of have more consultations across the board with the community, so that folks are not caught unaware. Because I understand even up to this day, the average citizen of the Central African Republic, I don't know what Bitcoin is, because they already have other bigger problems than a digital currency. So there's something that we can pick from this in terms of learning which pitfalls can be avoided and how you can be able to launch something that is maybe in a staged approach that can be more organically sustainable, which is something that actually gives us that. Then, because if you look at this particular failure within the Central African Republic, it kind of can be contrasted within adoption we see in other markets, say Nigeria and South Africa, whereby you see the P2P trading volumes across various P2P exchanges, they're actually spiking. So which shows that there's positive adoption in other more developed economies that can be able to shoulder such technologies. So it's simply a case of a rushed regulation per se that we can be able to take some points from and be able to do better if we wanted to do something similar within any other African country.
So on the topic of doing something similar in another African country, as an expert in the crypto and the Web3 space, do you think it's a good idea for Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency for that matter to be a legal tender in a country? What are the benefits of doing that? What are the cons?
Yeah, if you ask me like you're asking me right now, I actually would say it would be good to kind of have a framework that recognizes cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies to be legal tender within a given country, because it opens up. You can look at the positives that El Salvador has gotten in terms of, say, net positives like tourism numbers going up, and also having remittances that can be easily sent back home through mediums that are not simply cash-based US dollar wire transfers back home. So it kind of gives you a wider net. Even for the government, you kind of get a wider tax bracket. Like you see what is happening in Kenya, they've proposed a 3% tax on crypto transactions. So simply making them legal tender simply puts it more in the mainstream. There is more protection for the consumers, and you can also get more adoption because there is kind of a seal of approval that comes in from the highest office in the land. So those are the pros. But then secondly, the cons are also coming out because there is still a very huge learning gap that needs to be addressed by governments everywhere, because you don't know what you're actually regulating. It goes down to knowing that cryptocurrency is actually an area of computer science, and it's not something that is everyday knowledge. So there's a large learning gap that the regulators across the board have to kind of be able to go through this and be able to be ahead of where they need to be. Otherwise, it will be catastrophic for you to put a seal of approval on something that you do not understand. And once your citizens kind of have questions, or there are scammers that are coming in, because scamming is a really big issue within the crypto space, you have no redress for them. That kind of would not sit good with any citizenry, and the government would lose credibility. So that's kind of my 2 cents on this. It would be good to have a legal framework for cryptocurrencies because the positives far outweigh the negatives. And I do believe that with the right partners and stakeholders on board, you can be able to work towards having a more prosperous country once you have legal tender for cryptocurrencies.
I mean, yeah, you touched on capacity building and education. I think that's what I'm thinking is one of the key challenges right now. Financial literacy is very low across many countries in Africa. So jumping from the basic learning about savings or loans from microfinance or a bank to then a digital asset that's not tangible, that can't be actually used in the market physically. There needs to be a lot of capacity building that would go on, and that's not going to happen overnight. So I can see in an element within the Central African Republic regulation, you mentioned around the infrastructure, around electricity, internet, but also the capacity building. That's not going to happen soon. That's a continuous process. So how do you educate the whole nation about cryptocurrency? Those that are deep in a village that don't have access to a smartphone or a television, to those that are in the cities. How would you actually go about implementing an educational project to raise that understanding about not only crypto, but blockchain technology and all of the risks associated with the fraud? Because I know we're seeing increased events of mobile money fraud, but crypto is another level. So how would you go about implementing that type of education project or education scheme?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jack. Well, when it comes to me, I'm personally passionate about education, and I believe education is the foundation. It's the cornerstone of adoption of cryptocurrencies or blockchain technology in Africa and anywhere in the world. If folks don't understand what they're using, then basically that is dead in the water. It's not going anywhere. So from my experience and what we've been able to do is that we've had a multi-sector approach to education, whereby you kind of have folks that can be able to reach various sections of society, from the regulators to the retail consumers to the folks at the grassroots, all these individuals. And you have to talk and speak in a language that they understand. So there's a need to localize content. So it's not something that happens overnight, but as long as there are people who are willing to do this, there are frameworks that can be able to do that. When you look at the case of Uganda, we have the Blockchain Association of Uganda, which is basically an umbrella body for all folks that are practicing within the ecosystem that is blockchain. And this particular body is in the process of becoming a professional self-regulating organization and should be kind of a thought leader when it comes to the industry within Uganda. We are trying to have approaches that can be able to engage various stakeholders at various levels. We've spoken to the Bank of Uganda, we talk to individuals one-on-one, we talk to the retail consumer, we talk to folks that are simply in the villages, in the grassroots. So what we say is that once you talk to individuals within their particular context, and you don't have like one general piece of information or message to everybody, it kind of works better that way because folks can be able to relate to what you're saying within their own context. And it's still early days, and education is something that won't really stop. It has to be there for as long as there is a need to adopt these emerging technologies. But that is kind of the understanding that we have. You have to have folks that can be able to engage various stakeholders within their context and be able to localize the message to appeal to these individuals. So every now and then you have success stories, and every now and then you have maybe things that didn't go so great, but as long as there is this general context and this ongoing engagement, it always works out in the favor of seeing that you can be able to get a wider adoption by bringing these pools together because you have messages that are tailored towards these various individuals. That's what I've seen within my experience, and I believe that is something that needs to be energized more because you have education programs that are being designed by individual players, say exchanges within Uganda, say cryptocurrency education firms that simply provide education on blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. So all of us working together, it's something that brings an active movement that is able to overshadow the scams that kind of have some piece of the social mind share, but we're trying to kind of overshadow them and also bring the actual technology and the teachings and the learnings of blockchain to the fore through having these constant engagements at various stakeholder levels.
Understood. So if anyone is watching this and thinks, how can I learn more about crypto? How can I get into this ecosystem? Do you have any resources, books, websites that you feel are valuable for someone that needs to take that first step about learning about crypto or blockchain?
Yeah, so what is interesting here is that there is so much information out there, and something as simple as going to Wikipedia and typing in what is blockchain or blockchain, that's a very good first step. But then there's something that I've actually used across the years and over the years, which is the Binance Academy. It's a very good resource that is non-partisan. It just talks about blockchain and cryptocurrencies A to Z. And if you simply go to Binance and Binance.com, you can be able to find the academy on there. And it's a very good resource that you can be able to reference to anybody. They can take it from the beginner level right up to the expert level. So that's a very good way that you can be able to get into the space. Then also locally, there are very many events across various countries within at least the context of Africa. You can be able to attend a meetup, you can be able to attend a conference, attend a workshop that is talking about Web3 and blockchain technologies. Then you find various like-minded people there, because that's also one of the paths that I took. I was able to attend meetups and I was able to find people that saw the world the way that I saw it. And these are the individuals that they've really been key in as far as building my career as a Web3 professional. So yeah, those are solid avenues that you can be able to reference to anybody, and you can be able to get the most out of the Web3 space.
Umar, it's been great to have you on the podcast, learning more about crypto in Africa, some of the challenges, and where we might be going in the next few years. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Jack. It's been a pleasure.